Today we are going to discuss programming languages. So what is a programming language? Programming language is a set of words, symbols and codes used to write programs is called programming language. There are many programming languages in the market like Java, C Sharp, VB.NET, C++, C, Python. These are the famous languages in the market. Languages are categorized in the following categories: low-level languages and high-level languages. Low-level languages: the languages which are near to computer hardware and far from human languages, like the binary language and the assembly language. These are the languages which human cannot understand, but the computer can directly understand them, and they are fastest to execute for the computer. Machine language. Machine language is the binary language, and computer can directly understand it. And if it is written on the one computer, it cannot be executed on the other computer. Assembly language. Assembly language is also low-level language and one step higher from machine language. It Symbols are used in this language instead of the binary codes. This is also called a symbolic language. Because of this, this is called the second generation language. High level language. High level languages are the languages which human can directly understand, but the computer cannot directly understand them, like C++, C Sharp, Java, VB.NET. These languages computer directly do not understand them, and a special program compiler is used to convert them into binary. So then that binary code computer directly understands and execute that code. High level languages are further categorized in procedural languages, object-oriented languages, and non-procedural languages. Procedural languages, these are the old languages and do not support object-oriented programming. And these languages include Fortran, Basic, COBOL, Pascal, C. These languages are also called as third generation languages. Object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming is a technique where the programs are used on the basis of objects. An object is like in the real world. Object has properties and some functions, like human has a height, a weight, and some other properties and some functions like eating, fighting. The features of object-oriented programming are objects, like I already told you. Classes are the basis for objects, like all humans have something common in them that makes him a human. Real world modeling. So objects are like in the real world, so it is called real world modeling technique. Reusability. Objects Object oriented programming supports the technique of inheritance. Inheritance allows a programmer to use the existing code to create a new program. Information hiding. Object oriented programming technique supports encapsulation, which can hide important data from other functions and classes. Polymorphism. Polymorphism is ability to behave an object in multiple ways. The languages which support object-oriented programming techniques are C++ and Java. C++ was developed in Bell Laboratories in 1980s, and it was an improved version of C++, and in the beginning it was called as C with classes. And Java is a popular high-level language which is used to develop and write programs, and was designed by Sun Microsystems company. The primary purpose of to develop this language was to program microprocessors in VCR, toasters, cable receivers, and etc. It has the powerful capabilities for internet programming and graphical user interface. Non-procedural languages. Some other languages are also included in object-oriented programming, which are VB.NET, C#. Non-procedural languages. These are the languages which are called fourth generation languages. We only need to tell them what to do, not how to do, like SQL and the other database languages. So here are the SQL and RPG. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It is the most popular database query language. SQL was developed by IBM. It is the national standard for American National Standards Institute. SQL works with database programs like MS Access, DB2, Informatics, MS SQL, Oracle, Sybase, etc. And the other fourth generation language is RPG, which stands for Report Program Generator. It was developed in early 1960s by IBM. It is used to generate business reports. It is a non-procedural language. It is mostly used with IBM mid-range computers. So here the difference between procedural and non-procedural languages. I told you everything, so I'm not gonna read it. Difference between low-level languages and high-level languages. High-level languages are easy to learn, like C++, C#, VB.NET. High-level languages are near to human languages. Translator is required. Program in high-level languages are slow in execution. Programs in high-level languages are easy to modify. High-level languages do not provide much facility at hardware level. Deep knowledge of hardware is not required to write programs. These languages are normally used to write application programs. So we are not gonna develop low-level languages, so I am not gonna read it. Natural programming languages. Natural programming languages are also known as fifth generation languages or intelligent languages. Translator programs for these languages are very complex and require a large amount of computer resources. That is why most of these languages are still in experience phase. Types of codes: source code and object code. These are the types of code. So the code we write is called the source code, and when we compile this code, it is translated into the object code, and then object code is further linked by the linker with the other libraries and the binary codes. So at the end, a executable file is generated. Computer cannot understand the source code directly, so we need to use a compiler, a special software. Object code is a machine language code, and computer can directly understand it. But there are some files which are needed to be linked with that code. to properly tell what that code means. Difference between source code and object code. I am not gonna read it. Language processor. Language processor is also called as compiler. Compiler are the language processors. Computer understands only machine language. A program written in high-level language or assembly language cannot be run on computer directly. It must be converted in machine language before execution. Language processor or translator is software that converts these programs into machine language. So the language processor is a software which translates the your source code into the object code. There are two types of language processors. First is compiler. Compiler is a program that converts source code of high-level language as a whole into the machine language. A program written in high-level language is called source program. Compiler converts source program into machine code known as object program or object code. The compiler checks each statement in source program and generates machine instructions. Compiler also checks syntax error in the program. A source program containing an error cannot be compiled. A compiler of a special language can translate the special code for the only language it understands. Like if you try to compile C# program in C language compiler, it cannot be compiled. It will be failed and throw an error. Interpreter. Assembler is a program which translates the instructions line by line. Python and the basic is a language. These languages use assembler to generate the binary codes for the source code. So that's it. Goodbye and subscribe my channel.